Hello everyone, my name is Forrest. You're watching Bitcoin Not Crypto, the show that explores why Bitcoin should be your number one allocation and all other crypto is gambling, vaporware, and straight up scams. So today I want to talk about orange pilling. Orange pilling your friends and family. It can seem like something you want to try to do, and maybe it is. I mean, the network effect, right? Bitcoin grows and Bitcoin becomes more and more usable as more people accept it and more people hold it and more use cases develop on Bitcoin and for Bitcoin. Now, to preface this a little bit, I want to just say that sometimes orange pilling is not right for you. Maybe your temperament, you can't handle basically the confusion, the naysayers. Maybe it's better for you to just stack and just hold on to it and just live by example. You know, at a certain point, if all the theses play out about what Bitcoin will become, then you will be ahead of the curve and people will say, okay, now I'm ready to listen to you because, you know, number go up and or whatever the reason is, basically. Maybe they'll see something else and they'll know just that just by the off chance of you mentioning it or something like that. So it's more of, there's this sales tactic basically of push and pull, right? A pushy salesperson is somebody that's trying to present and trying to push their product on you. A pull salesman is somebody who's just saying, I'm here if you're interested. Maybe that is more of a tactic for you because it'll be less confrontational. Now, if you do want to present Bitcoin to some of your friends and family in a push style, and I don't mean pushy as like a used car salesman, but I just mean you're going to try to present conversations that allow for the discussion of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an extremely complex and complicated subject, so be aware that you're going to really only be able to go so far within a single conversation with somebody, and that's based on their knowledge of money, their knowledge of economics, their knowledge of Bitcoin to begin with. And the other thing with that is that a lot of people have a preconception of Bitcoin. They've read a New York Times article, they've read something, you know, 4, 5, 10 years ago saying one thing about Bitcoin, but that has changed, right? There was a ton of articles about how much energy usage Bitcoin is using, you know, electrical energy, and they are using 0.5% of the global electricity. However, there's less articles talking about how 57% of that is from a renewable source, and that's the highest in any industry in the world. And there's an incentive for them to use renewables because they can use energy when the grid doesn't need it. They can access that energy and not have to build the infrastructure to tie that into the grid. They can mine on site of these renewable plants that can be built remotely. There's lots of incentives, and the incentive basically is cheap electricity because renewables are becoming cheaper and cheaper and are in fact the cheapest form of electricity. Solar, I believe, is the cheapest form of electricity. However, it is not the most effective because it only produces when the sun shines, and that isn't necessarily when other people need electricity. So Bitcoin can be this bridge and can be a demand for electricity. This is a totally different subject, but why I am telling you about the efficiency and the environmental impact of Bitcoin is because maybe that's the angle you want to discuss and try to orange pill somebody with. And so that is what I'm going to try to tell you about right here, is that orange pilling, you should come at, you should talk, you should ask questions. What do you know about Bitcoin? What do you know about money? And you should know the people you're orange pilling a little bit. If they're an environmentalist, if they're somebody that cares about carbon and the atmosphere and these kind of things, and they believe a lot of the kind of the mainstream about this, then maybe you should tell them just what I told you about. You should research this, of course, yourself so that you can talk about it with some effectiveness. But maybe the environmental angle is how you want to present Bitcoin. Now, if you know that somebody cares about human rights, or they care about, you know, individuals, and the way you would know that is, you know, they talk about the suffering of people in faraway lands or the suffering of people here, wherever you are here. And you can talk about how Bitcoin can bank the unbanked, and that the financial industry is basically what keeps these people from moving forward in a way of improving their lives, right? The financial system is totally geared towards the people that are closest to the printer, that have the most money, that can be banked and have the most efficient way of investing, all of these kind of things. And the people furthest away from that basically have the hardest time getting closer to the sort of financial ability of these people, right? So there's a big spectrum, and the people that benefit the most from Bitcoin are like the people furthest away from the banks, basically. If your friend is into technology, you can talk to them about the technology factor of money. If they're into history, you can talk to them about what the history of money is and how it was always something that developed from the people until now, which is kind of directed on high by the government. The government says this is money, right? Actually, money always started as what people thought was a store of value and what they were willing to exchange their goods and services for. And it was a real grassroots thing. Money has always been grassroots. And now it's been kind of co-opted by the government. And they say, okay, well, we want our taxes in this. It's basically proof of force, forcing you to use this currency. Whereas Bitcoin is another grassroots kind of bottom-up system of money. And you can talk about how basically Bitcoin is a protocol. It's a system of being able to transmit value over the internet. And you can talk about the decentralized nature of it and why that's important to the technology of money. So my idea of how to orange pill people is come to them where they are. Don't try to talk to a technical person about the environmental aspect of Bitcoin. Don't try to talk to an environmental minded person about the technical side of Bitcoin. Come to where they might be interested and expect pushback. Expect basically, there are people out there, of course, that think they know more than they do. And oh my God, there are so many people like that, of course. And just realize that those people will learn as more information comes out and based on their open-mindedness, right? Try to find people to talk to that are open-minded. Try to talk to people that are interested. Don't try to orange pill every single person in your life, because not any of them, most of them, in fact, will not care about money. They don't care about their bank. They care about just having enough money to pay rent and all these things. They care about inflation because prices go up, but they don't care about inflation because of how it's started by basically money printing, because that is just a concept beyond what their scope of caring is. But if they do care about inflation, maybe you can broach that. You can say, well, do you understand markets? Do you understand market of supply and demand? Well, dollars are a tool, they're a technology, and when you increase the supply of them and the demand stays the same, you have diluted the stock. You have diluted everyone else that holds dollars. And you can talk about basically how Bitcoin has a programmed issuance, a max supply, and it actually becomes deflationary. And in fact, it probably already is, because so many people don't understand how to take self-custody. So with all that said, just going to reiterate again, come to where people are if you plan to orange pill them. Another way too is you don't have to be an expert on all of these things. Maybe try to create some resources. Find some podcasts, find some clips that talk about very specific parts of it, very interesting parts. There's one that's great by Alex Gladstein from the 2024 Bitcoin conference, where he talks about how Bitcoin allows, it's sort of a humanitarian aid, right? So people that care about that stuff, you could send that. You could find, and I'll link these in the description, but basically there's a great one by Matthew Kratter of Bitcoin University, where he talks about how Bitcoin can basically stop forever wars or help defund forever wars. That's something that I cared so deeply about. In fact, actually, my last episode was about that. You could send them that even. So you could create some resources, and you can check my link in the description of this podcast for some of those resources where you can actually allow somebody else who may be more able to transfer that message, unlike where I was able to transfer that message right there with not being able to communicate that properly. You could find the right piece of content possibly to share to somebody, but I would just keep your expectations low. You know, this is something where people have to learn a lot of things. They might have to change a lot of their own views. They might believe that government spending is really great, that taxation on rich people is really great, that price controls are really great. Somebody like that is going to be very resistant to the idea of Bitcoin because it basically says, here's the free market, here is no control over the money, allowing anyone to be able to transact, and that is actually a good thing. It is net positive, although it allows criminals to transact. Cash allows criminals to transact. In fact, banks allow people that are criminals to transact, and some of those criminals are massive clients. The cartel, you know, Jeffrey Epstein, like Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan, the CEO, he was the banker for Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, these people are criminals. They allow criminals to transact. And Bitcoin, of course, does not stop criminals from transacting. And in fact, it allows more and more people to transact, which again is a net positive. So these are some things that are very difficult to explain to people that come from a different value set and who have been basically told and brainwashed into ideas that don't help the people that they wished they were helping. So keep that in mind and keep calm and keep orange pilling. It's all good. And if you want to support this show, there are some links in the description. One of them is to my Geyser Fund. I plan on making this film about El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin. I think it's a monumental piece of history that needs to be documented in its entirety of what El Salvador was like before, what it is currently, and what it will be in the future because of Bitcoin adoption at a national level. And that is being funded by Bitcoin on Geyser Fund, which is a crowdfunding platform that allows you to be paid in Bitcoin and pay in Bitcoin. And there's another link for the Bitcoin Well, which is a Canadian and United States non-custodial platform for buying Bitcoin on-chain and through the Lightning Network. And you directly get that in your wallet. So you take custody over it. They never hold your Bitcoin for you. There's a link in the description. If you use my code, I get a small kickback. It's an affiliate link, so it goes to support this show. So those are the two best ways. Of course, the third best way that costs you absolutely nothing is sharing this content, liking it, subscribing, commenting, all of that, and looking forward to the next one that I post. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.